If they do that, the Cougars will be very, 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 very tough to beat.
Off the window, no. Roberts tried to get it. Shed for the win. Got it.
Just with 14 points, but you just look the way that he dominated the game was in controlling the pace and making smart decision after decision.
Call them by Slamma Jamma.
Go to pizza spot before or after.
The dream is alive for Houston. Go Cougs! Let's go!
Welcome into another episode of Let's Rage Coogs. If you can hear something in my mouth, that is because I'm eating the delicious Star Pizza. Kris, give me the solo spotlight real quick.
You got it, brother. Uh-oh. There we go.
Star Pizza with 3 locations throughout the Houston area. It's your go-to stop before or after the game, and we're enjoying some delicious pepperoni pizza, courtesy of Star Pizza. Big thank you to Mike and Jennifer Pittman for sending it to us from the Fertitta Center after the game. And again, they really, I know the Cougs are hungry after that one because it was a total beatdown. So much energy and intensity that they showed out, especially on the defensive end. I'm curious to get your thoughts, Kris. Just overall, first eye test, I think this is, quite frankly, the best game that the Houston Cougars have played so far this season up to this point. Best shooting performance, great defense. The crowd was electric, and quite frankly, BYU was kind of they were awestruck at the beginning. They had 10 first half turnovers, and a lot of them came just out of overthrows into the crowd, the ball not being able to catch the ball, it bouncing off out of bounds. The Cougars pounced, and really, I mean, BYU was never in this game.
Yep. After the game, BYU head coach Kevin Young, he touched on that. I think BYU had like 6 turnovers early in the game. He was disappointed in the turnovers that they had, but he was more disappointed in their defense and not really competing against Houston's Cougars. As an alum, I'm going to say the Cougars, the real Cougars. But BYU didn't play well. You know, they're coming off a blowout win over Arizona State. They didn't shoot the ball well from 3. Cougars defense was very, very good, but there were just a handful of times that they missed on rotation or late on rotation. The Coach Sampson kind of touched on that in postgame for UH as well. But clearly, and it's not going to happen a lot. If it does, it's going to be a great, great Big 12 season for the Cougs. They shoot 16 for 34 from 3. And if they shoot like that, there's going to be a lot of people. You know, Terrence Arsenault had a great game after having a poor game on Monday in Stillwater. He shot well from 3, 4 for 5. Emmanuel Sharp, coming back from injury, was 4 for 8 from 3. At one point in the second half, Milos, LJ, and Emmanuel combined for 5 for 6 from 3. Cougs do that. It's going to be very, very, very hard to beat them. But Coach Sampson, as he does, I won't say which colleague of ours asked the question, but Coach said, you know, yes, Terrence shot well today, but he's not Steph Curry. Don't get carried away. He may go over in the next game. Today he made him. You didn't do anything in Monday against Oklahoma State. So yeah, Terrence played well, but let's, you know, pump your brakes on that. Ironically, Andy, Coach credited LJ Cryer for being the best defender in today's ball game.
Yeah, I caught that one when they were playing it inside of the Fertitta Center. That was a big, really kind of the attention grabbing quote that stood out to me when he said it. Big kudos to LJ Cryer in this game. And when we look at the numbers, you mentioned it top to bottom. Emmanuel Sharp led the Cougars in scoring with 18 points, 5 of 9 shooting. Funny enough, heading into this game, Kelvin Sampson told media on Thursday that he had been dealing with an ankle injury that apparently he's been dealing with for several days and possibly even weeks. The way he described it was black and blue, and they had to put him on a boot just to the way he phrases to promote healing. Wouldn't know anything about that based on his performance in this game, and you knew it was the Cougars' night. Well, the Cougars were already up big in the second half, but that was at 1-3 in top of the key, shot clock winding down. Emmanuel Sharp just throws it up, makes it. And at that point, like that's just an indicator of the night that the Cougars had. There was nothing BYU could do about that. And like you said, Kris, when Houston shoots as well as they did in this game, 49% from the field, 47% on 3-pointers, like you mentioned, and free throw shooting, 12 of 16. They only missed 4 free throws. That's just not going to be many teams, if any at all, that could beat Houston when they're clicking like this. Even the rebounding battle, they out-rebounded BYU 37-24, which obviously we know that Kelvin Sampson's going to really love that. But top to bottom, you mentioned Terrence. He finished with 15 points, 5 of 9 shooting from the field as well. He went 4 of 5 on his threes. LJ Cryer had 9 points, 3-11 from the field, 2 assists. Miles Uzan, 7 points, 8 assists, 2 rebounds. And Juwan Roberts, 6 points, 6 rebounds. Overall, I think this is a good performance for multiple Cougs. It wasn't necessarily, I know Emmanuel Sharp led the way with scoring, but I wouldn't say this was necessarily an Emmanuel Sharp game. It was just a solid, really well performance for Houston, and they took advantage. They exploited BYU, and it didn't matter what they tried to do on defense. They seemed like they had an answer for it. They tried to switch up to zone a couple times. It didn't matter. When they did that, Houston just started killing them with corner threes. So great performance from Houston.
It was a pick your poison game for BYU, because at times they let Juwan Roberts go one-on-one. And Juwan said, Coach Sampson and Juwan said post-game that there were times, especially in the first half, when Juwan waited too long to make his move. He was waiting for the double team in the first half, and he was much more aggressive with his moves in second half. But when he had his move one-on-one, either he got it, he missed, it was a rebound. If BYU doubled, he'd kick it out. And Coach Sampson said once the Cougs get inside action, where there's penetration, post-ups, they're going to get open threes. They're going to get kick out threes. Malik Wilson was perfect from the floor today, 5 for 5. Yep. Xavier Francis had his best, I won't say his best game overall. Offensively, he had putbacks.
He had a solid performance.
He was real good.
He had the fast break performance.
The steal and the rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, layup that he made as well. It was just a very good offensive performance. And I won't say it. I see Crabtree's comment about it. That's the way the Houston team we thought we'd see at the beginning of the year. No. Coach Sampson would disagree with that, and I would as well, because of Miles Uzan's first, replacing Jamal Shedd. It took time.
Yeah.
It took time and Los is getting better, more comfortable. He was more aggressive, taking shots today. He still passed a couple of shots, Coach Sampson's liking, but he was 2 for 9. I'm not worried about what he made. He took 9 shots. He was aggressive with his threes. 8 assists from him. He had a nice alley-oop dunk pass to Malik Wilson for a dunk. I was happy to see Emmanuel Sharp get a lob to JoJo Tugler for a finish. Things we talked about on those pin actions out high when the guard, in this case, Emmanuel, got his man on his hip. The big had to come over, tossed a lob to JoJo. It's been there. It's been open much of this season. And finally, it worked. They did it in the game. At one point in the second half, I checked it out. At one point, the Cougs scored 1.824 points per possession.
Jeez.
They were rolling offensively from 3, and that's going to, shooting like that's going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, well, I mean.
And Coach Young said it too, and he's probably correct. Houston may not make 16 threes in a game the rest of the year. This is the season,
especially at the percentage, at the high rate that they did, how effective they were.
They were almost 50% from 3.
Yeah, that's not going to happen on a consistent
basis. Folks, we've said it a few times this year, and the defense is getting better.
Mm-hmm.
But offensively, 3-point shooting wise, this might be Coach Sampson's best 3-point shooting team at Houston.
Yeah, that's something Terrence Arsenault mentioned last week. He said he feels personally that this is the best shooting that he's been around since his time with Houston. And, I mean, when they have performances like they did tonight, it's hard to argue with that statistic. But 47% from 3. It's crazy. It's phenomenal.
Because LJ, for LJ Cryer, didn't shoot well. He was 3 for 11, 3 for 9 on threes.
Didn't have that well of a shooting night.
And they still almost shot 50% from 3. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about that.
Well, think about this.
LJ 5 for 15.
Yeah, exactly. LJ Cryer 3 of 9, Miles Uzan 2 for 6, and Houston still made almost 50% of their threes. It's crazy.
Take those two out. The rest of the team was 11 for 19 from three. As a team, they made 11 of 18 threes in the second half.
Yeah.
Cougar family, Coug Nation,
Uh-huh.
Houston Cougar Nation. How many times do we see that in the previous 10 years of Houston Cougar Kelvin Sampson basketball? Really? I mean, come on now. This is a different team. Dominant win. It was a dominant win.
Yeah, D-Merrick said Go Cougs really dominant win against a great talented team. He had Crabtree points out BYU was averaging 85 points a game heading into this matchup, and the Cougars held them to just 55 points in the game. That's a great point. They looked flustered from the opening tip, from the opening possession, where they had a shot clock violation, went down to the final second, put up a fourth shot, and it was an air ball, and it was really just a sign of things to come for Houston and their phenomenal play on the defensive side of the ball, not just offensively.
Yeah, and that's one thing Coach Young said again, that he was asked post-game, is Houston's defense difficult to simulate in practice? And he said he agreed. Yes, it is. It's hard to simulate that kind of what they do, the physicality. And really, we've touched on it. Coach Sampson, he said it again, Houston's length. This team is long.
Yeah.
At almost every position. I mean, LJ Cryer is 6 feet, 6'1", well, 6 feet, listed at 6'1". But everybody has got long arms, and the rotations are good. And where they rotate, and I love when Coach Sampson said it, in a pick and roll defense, it takes 5 to defend a pick and roll. The 2 people involved on the perimeter, they're just the front of it. What the other 3 do on the back end in terms of the rotation, if they rotate correctly and they're in the right spots, a player who might look open for a pass, but the length, the quickness to recover and be in the right spot, that open pass is gone in an instant. And that's what you saw. Yeah. I mean, the Cougs were like 24, 5 points off turnovers. This was a game I think Dayon would be thrilled with because the Houston scored in transition. They pushed the pace more. I mean, they finished with 1.5 points per possession in the second half, which is down from the 1.8. I mean, that is just ridiculous, man. That's almost 2 points per possession, folks. Wow. Very impressive. They finished the game for the game. Houston was 1.41 points per possession in the ball game. He scored on 57% of their possessions. Wow.
Sorry. Let's pause for a second. I'd like to thank each and every single person, first of all, that's taking the time out of their Saturday afternoon here to join us for this edition of Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. Of course, we'd like to say a big thank you to Steve Saxenian for being the primary sponsor of not only today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, but each and every single post-game show throughout the regular season. And he has been the primary sponsor going back toward the football season. So big thank you to Steve Saxenian for being the primary sponsor, and also big thank you to Star Pizza. We opened it with the show. Mike and Jennifer Pittman make sure that we are well fed following Houston's big win over BYU. They have 3 different locations throughout the Houston area. Be sure to stop by any one of those locations and tell them that you heard about them on Let's Rage Coogs. Be sure to visit them online as well at starpizza.net and visit them on social media at Star Pizza HOU. They're constantly promoting daily specials, and be sure to check out their Tuesday and Friday lunch specials where they have their all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. That being said, for the Cougars in this performance, I think one thing that I don't even know if you could call it underrated, but I think one of the key factors into how poorly BYU started had to do with the crowd and how Houston was able to feed off of it. And I found it very interesting that this was early when Houston I think they had built a 10-point lead for the first time, and BYU called a timeout right away. But Juwan Roberts looks at the crowd. He's trying to hype them up, trying to get them excited. The coaching staff, and as the game goes, it's kind of like an avalanche effect where it just keeps coming in when the Cougars are locked in defensively, and then add on top of that how well they play offensively, that BYU just stood no chance. And like you mentioned, Kris, how well in transition, it's something that the Cougars had mentioned, even Kelvin Sampson had mentioned, that this team feels like that they're at their best when they're pushing the pace and they're kind of in attack mode.
Mhm.
And that was the recipe for success in this outing against BYU. They were full pedal to the metal on that gas, and they really never took their foot off that.
They did, and this is in spite of JoJo Tugler being in foul trouble much of the game. So
He fouled out.
he fouled out. He played, what did he play? Total
18 minutes.
18 minutes.
5 points, 5 rebounds.
He never got into a rhythm. And his fouls called on him were fouls. Coach Sampson was on him for one of the moving screens that was called on him. He wasn't set. So he's got to learn, and he will. He's still young, but Xavier Francis is playing better. He's more comfortable in his. Today he was. Now let's see him do it again. Let's see him do it on Monday. Quick turnaround, very quick turnaround for everybody involved. Us, the players, the coaches, everyone, the staff playing TCU on Monday night. Part of, I guess, the newer version of Big Monday on ESPN/ESPN2. But
a little bit of simulating the NCAA tournament experience.
Xavier played well, scored, putbacks, was aggressive on offense, had some block shots too. Malik Wilson made corner threes. Malik Wilson was a recipient of an alley-oop dunk. Terrence with the corner threes. Mercy Millers is settling down. Coach Sampson touched on it. He said Mercy is learning maturity from LJ Cryer. And that's part of the Houston Cougar culture. The veteran players take the younger players under their wings and teach them how to be Cougars. And LJ's defense, he's playing Cougar defense. No offense to Baylor. I mean, they want a chip. That's one thing the Cougars want to do. Cougar Nation wants to do. But LJ's defense at Baylor, he wasn't playing like on defense there like he's playing now with Houston. So his progression, his improvement is great to see. And again, he took good shots, just didn't fall. Milos took good shots. Milos was aggressive, taking his shots today, just didn't fall. And they still won by, 31.
I think that's a really underrated aspect of it that you just mentioned. I kind of want to refocus and spotlight a little bit, but that's something that Kelvin said on Thursday during his media availability as well, just in terms of not just with the younger players. And he mentioned Mercy Miller, where, I mean, let's be honest, he hasn't had consistent minutes over the course of the last few weeks. And it doesn't matter for any player, but obviously in particular with him, for a lot of these guys, for all of these guys, not a lot, for all of these guys, before they step foot on the University of Houston campus, they are, for the most part, the guy at whatever high school, whatever program they come from before that. And then everybody's got to make sacrifices when they step foot on this campus. And for a guy like Mercy Miller, obviously barely a freshman, and quite frankly, for all the freshmen on this year's team, it's got to be a little bit of hard pill to swallow is probably not the right phrasing of it, but just to have to go from having a consistent role, being the guy, to not getting significant minutes over an extended stretch. And like you mentioned, Kris, guys like LJ Cryer, Emmanuel Sharp, who've been here with the program before, have been crucial in kind of, again, holding them under their wing, for lack of a better phrase, and kind of guiding them through the process.
Yeah, I mean, it is part of it. And Coach Sampson even said that LJ has been good for Juwan this year. And he made an interesting comment. Coach Sampson said
Jeremy Branham saying
that's fine. The voice of Cougar Radio, Cougar Athletics, that the leadership, team leadership in November was not where it needed to be at that point in time, which is to be expected because, new roles for people, new people in different positions, but it's better now. And LJ is being more of a leader, more of a vocal leader, which is out of LJ's character. He's become a more vocal leader this year, his last year in college. So it's all part of the process and the growth of these Cougars. Payson, salute to you for joining us on the show. But I enjoy when the Cougs play each other because BYU has a great fan base. There was a few times there were chances, BYU. I mean, it's so strange.
No, that caught me off guard when it happened. It happened early in the first half, and they started a very loud BYU chant. Now, granted, Houston was up 7 points, I believe. It was 7 or 9 points at this point on. I remember because Terrence Arsenal was at the free throw line and just randomly you hear it, and it was a
Yeah.
very audible chant. And I think even some of the Houston fans were stunned a little bit because everyone, when they heard
Yeah.
that, they turned and they were like, but yeah, there was a significant amount of blue in the stands. Now, unfortunately for BYU, unfortunately for Houston, they didn't really have much to cheer about besides that. But yeah, they travel really well. And think about the last time that these two programs met on this court. It ended on the buzzer beater in favor of BYU. So, I mean, great get back for Houston, and you're right. It's definitely always a good program to face, even regardless of what sport it is. I remember when football came down and traveled 4 years ago now. Their fans always travel well. That was during the COVID season. So,
And it's weird, for these games, it's weird to say Cougs house because BYU is a Cougs too. So I mean, both teams are Cougs, but salute to them. And I think this is the only matchup in the regular season between the two teams. Cougs don't go to Provo. I think they go to Utah, but not Provo. But whatever. I'm looking forward to next year's matchups, though. I know that for sure. With all the 5 stars BYU's bringing in, and the 5 stars that Houston's bringing in as well, those games should be on ESPN or CBS or whatever. But good win for Houston. And again, if the Houston Cougars, we might look back on this day, hopefully we don't, as a high watermark of 3-point shooting. Hopefully this becomes, it'd be great if this happens 6 times in tournament.
Oh.
Andy, if Houston can shoot this well from 3, because if they do that for 6 times in tournament, that's a chip.
Well,
that is a chip.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be curious to see how they turn around and how they look on Monday for those various reasons. They look real good offensively in this performance. They shot the ball lights out. Now they have to simulate that NCAA tournament field because they're right back 2 days after. And I mean, let's face it. You mentioned that in a perfect world, that'd be phenomenal. And quite frankly, if they are able to do that, yes, they probably are going to be the ones that are holding up that championship in April. But that's just not realistic, to be honest. And we heard Kelvin Sampson say, to go back to the point you mentioned, like these students, they're human. So it's going to be interesting to see how they look offensively and shoot. If they're able to put together another strong offensive performance like they did tonight, then maybe teams across the nation kind of have to start to build on it. And maybe it's a true sign like, hey, things are clicking. Now, I think what's interesting is we mentioned LJ Cryer, Miles Luzon didn't necessarily have a eye-popping offensive scoring performance.
Right.
So it very well could be, Emmanuel Sharp, Terrence Arsenal don't have that great of a night. Maybe LJ and Milos does. And that's something that, and really, it's not just unique to this Houston Cougars team, but for multiple teams throughout the Kelvin Sampson era, that's kind of been one of the identity cards of those two Cougar teams. They have multiple people that on any given night could be the guy and have it going. And the consistency above all of it is going to be their defense.
Right. Consistency, defense, and rebounding are the constants for this team. Offensively, it'll be who's got the hot hand game to game. LJ and Emmanuel are the leading scorers consistently, average-wise, points per game. But Juan had 20 on Monday against Oklahoma State. Emmanuel had 18 tonight. Terrence played, scored well. Didn't do anything against Oklahoma State point-wise. So it might be different. It might be LJ on Monday against TCU. It might be Milos against TCU. This team has scorers, and I think what's unique to this team is as shooters as well, guys who can make shots. And more times than not, this shooting may be a reason this team wins, because the defense is going to be constant. That's been a bugaboo for, we hear it nationally, we hear it locally. If Houston has lulled in games when it comes to offense, but the defense, as long as the defense keeps them in the game, this team can get hot from 3, unlike previous teams. So I'm looking forward to the team getting better. It's continuing to improve. Iowa State, to me, is still the best team in the Big 12. Cougs are second best. 1A, 1A, 1B, whatever. West Virginia is 2-0. They're playing well. Hell, they won at Kansas. So surprisingly there. Cincinnati is now 0-2. Arizona's, I think, 2-0 after today's win on the road against the Bearcats. I love Big 12 basketball, and it's a down year for the conference overall compared to SEC basketball, but Big 12 basketball is still a hell of a conference, and I look forward to every matchup throughout the conference play.
Yeah, you mentioned Iowa State. They had an impressive showing against the Baylor Bears. They came out victorious 74-55 in that game earlier today that started at the same time as Houston and BYU did. So it's going to be interesting to see when those two programs match up again. And going back to last season, how interesting it was when those two teams met during the 3 times last season. But that's down the road. Looking at this season, first, Crabtree's comment. He says, we really have to sit back and not take for granted how good this program has become. Coach Sampson has done an incredible job at U of H with his staff and players. He has far beyond exceeded expectations. That's a great point. It's always a good reminder to take a moment and enjoy the high that this program
is.
The
second golden era. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, as an older alum, this is the second golden era for Houston Cougars men's basketball. And I hope it ends differently than Gonzaga. Gonzaga's been elite for 20 years, but has won a chip. I hope the Cougars at some point soon win that chip, and this be the cherry on top for Coach Sampson, a Hall of Fame career. And I'll repeat it. I hope to do it. I hope Andy's there with me. Dayon is with me as well, so they can put it and record it and have it on social media for eternity of my acting a fool on the floor, running around, jumping up and down, trying to get a piece of the net or whatever after the Cougars win a championship. I mean, because that would be something else, man.
Well, we'll see. Maybe it happens this April, and maybe you'll be having confetti snow angels, Kris. Are we talking about that crazy?
That crazy. That crazy. Yep. That crazy.
Crabtree's comment. What do y'all think about the Big 12 competition so far? It's early, but like we mentioned, Iowa State, Arizona, West Virginia, they look good. Road games will be hard regardless of the team.
Iowa State is the best team right now. I'm surprised Arizona had a tough non-conference schedule as well and lost games. They seem good right now, but we're 2 games in.
Yeah, still early.
Let's see where you are 8 to 10 games in as a conference as a whole. The conference is still one of the best conferences in basketball. The cream will rise to the top. We'll see if Kansas figures it out. I think they will. But Iowa State and Houston, to me, are the 2 best teams. West Virginia, we'll see if they can maintain it. They played well so far. We'll see if they can maintain this, because at some point, their wins, they'll start becoming the hunted, and then we'll see how they react and respond to being the hunted rather than being the hunter.
Right. And if we're looking at net rankings, I definitely agree with what you just said, Kris. Houston is technically just a bit ahead over Iowa State. Houston's ranked sixth after the games played as of January 3rd, so yesterday. And Iowa State is literally right behind them at 7th. I'm sure that might fluctuate as the season progresses. They might flip-flop. And Baylor 16th, actually 15th, I should say. 3rd in the Big 12 when it comes to net. Kansas is 4th at 19th. Arizona not too far, 21st. And those are the top 5. Cincinnati is outside of the top 5 in the Big 12 at 26 overall. So net rankings wise, they kind of align with what you just said, Kris, about really it's Houston and Iowa State at the top of Big 12. And again, still early, still a lot of Big 12 conference play left. Only 2 games in. 18 games left in the new 20-game conference schedule for the Big 12.
And let me say this to UH fans: 6 more Coug games on ESPN Plus. 2 down, 6 more to go. A total of 8 of the Cougars games, conference games, are on ESPN Plus this season. So if you don't have ESPN Plus, hey, I'm giving a plug for my website. Go to my website, click on that banner, HoustonRoundballReview.com, and sign up. Just get it for a month. Because I think the remaining 6 ESPN Plus games are done by like mid-February. Because after that, it's ESPN, ESPN2, and CBS, something like that. That's the rest of them. But just bear with the schedule. 6 more games on ESPN Plus.
Well, on the topic of plug-in, we gotta like to say thank you to the Saxenian family, Mr. Steve Saxenian, for being a primary sponsor of today's edition of Let's Rage Coogs, live from the Fertitta Center. A big thank you to Mr. Steve Saxenian for being a primary sponsor not only of today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, but all season long, going back to the football post-game shows, and will continue to do so throughout the men's basketball regular season. And of course, we also like to say thank you to Star Pizza, who, listen, every time
do it again.
Caters, yes,
yeah,
I gotta put the box. Get yourself some Star Pizza. 3 different locations throughout the Houston area. You can see them on the screen if I flip the box, but you most definitely can learn more about those specific locations and the menu, what they offer at starpizza.net. Also, be sure to follow them online at Star Pizza HOU on X. I believe they're Star Pizza Houston, Texas on Instagram. So be sure, whatever platform you prefer, follow them. Like I said, they're always promoting different daily specials, and most definitely be sure to check them out Tuesdays and Fridays during lunchtime for their all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. And like I said, when next time you stop by, tell them you heard about them on Let's Rage Coogs. Coogs helping Coogs. We can never say thank you enough to Mike and Jennifer Pittman, along with Mr. Steve Saxenian, for helping us do here Let's Rage Coogs. Kind of want to shoot, and I should have asked the man for his name, but I had a person, I was sitting courtside while the players were warming up before today's game, and I had a man come up and just shouted us out, said he appreciates what we do, mentioned us by name, literally all 3 of us by name, you, B, and Dayon, and he says that real supporter of what we do, and he just thanks us for having a post-game show. So big thank you every time. That's the best right there. Never gets old. Doesn't matter how many times it gets done, and we can never say thank you enough. So all of you guys that take the time out of your day to support us, whether you're watching us live, whether you're commenting, whether you're listening audio only platforms, any way that you consume Let's Rage Coogs, Proxima Jam with Houston Roundball Review, you can never say thank you enough. And I mean, on that note, I want to say the NRG Texan says he's going to be right there with you, Kris. The security is going to have to earn their money trying to keep him off the court if U of H gets a national championship.
Yeah, shout me out, and I'll distract security so you can join me on the court. Because I'll do something. Because trust me, I'm not going to break any laws, but what I'm going to do is epic. I mean, I'm looking forward to that day. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be crying. I'm going to be all kind of stuff. Confetti angels, the whole bit. If Conrad lets me climb the ladder, I'm gonna climb the ladder. I mean, whatever, man. Yeah. But this point about Crabtree is correct as well. The Cougs this is their first of 13 quad 1 opportunities in Big 12 conference play. It was Thursday, they had 13 games. 13 of the last 19 Big 12 games were Q1 games. So it used to be 11, West Virginia winning. They became a quad 1 opponent on the road. So, hey, man, I love the Big 12, and it's a down year, yes, for the Big 12, because what SEC did non-conference is historic. And this year, the SEC is what the Big 12 was last 2 years. Every SEC game is a quad 1 or quad 2 game. Those are the top 2 conferences in men's basketball, Big 12 and the SEC. There needs to be a Big 12 SEC. You need to bring it back, have the challenge back. At ESPN or WBD or whatever, it needs to put that together, because ACC is on the downward slope for men's basketball. It's cyclical now, but right now it is Big 12
at the top
and the SEC are at the top of basketball. Yes, I know UConn is the reigning champ. I know that, but top to bottom, 8, 9, 10 deep, tournament deep, Big 10. No, I'm sorry. They're good conference, but not as deep as the SEC and Big 12. No.
Another point by Crabtree said it was a game to bring football recruits. The atmosphere was great, and the football team definitely took advantage of that atmosphere. There were multiple different recruits in attendance of today's game.
Agreed, and they saw folks, and they saw the right folks, and that's a plus. Good to see people introducing themselves to those players, and it's a smart thing to do. The synergy needs to be there, and there was some trash talk between some of us Cougar fans to some BYU Coug fans when the game became a blowout, and the BYU fan said, brought up football, And then the UH fan said,
The UH
we're a
fan had no
basketball
clue.
school. he paused and said, yeah, we're a basketball school.
Silence there for a second. He had to think about it for a second.
But it won't be long. It won't be long before UH football, it's going to be like half and half. We're going to be a basketball and a football school.
Yeah, then that guy started chanting Zach Wilson's name every time a BYU fan left early from their. So yeah, I mean, it was a great atmosphere inside the Fertitta Center. Kind of digressing back and looking a little bit ahead at TCU. What are kind of the first?
Honestly,
again,
I have no idea about TCU so far this year.
But like, well, again, the main thing that's going to be interesting to see is how Houston carries over. I think for the most part, we can agree just in terms of the defensive intensity will be there, no matter what. But I'm just going to be curious to see how look in really the first kind of obviously they had the tournament in Vegas where they had to play multiple games in a short time span. So it's just going to be, again, interesting to see how Houston does in a similar environment. Again, obviously this time being at home for the first time really since that November tournament in Vegas.
Yeah, and I see Ernest Uze is still there at TCU, big man. I swear he's been there forever. but TCU has a Gavi Lewis Award finalist, Mr. One Jace Posey, son of James Posey, former Rocket, former Heat player, plays for TCU. Not a lot of minutes, but he's a freshman there. And Crabtree, thank you for the update that TCU is up on K-State in the first half. I think that's in the first half. But it's a home game for TCU. You got to win your home games in Big 12. You got to protect home court for sure.
They're slightly ahead, 32-29.
Yeah, only by second half. Yeah.
Yep. So that'll be interesting for the Cougs. They probably don't want Kansas State to upset them, especially like you said at home. When you look at the net rankings, I just had them. TCU 71st currently, so they're 71st.
K-State is still in the 100s, right?
Yep. But they are no longer last when it comes to Big 12 schools. It is
Oklahoma State's not last.
Yep. But they're not that far ahead. But I believe they're 116th. So yep, 116th currently. So yeah, that would not be a good loss for TCU if they are not able to hang on. But still early in the second half, still a lot of basketball to play. So it'll be interesting to see how they finish. I mean, quite frankly, it's a game that Houston are just going to be favored in.
Houston
they should win
their home games.
But again, it's about just continue to see progress, and it certainly has looked like that for Houston since they got back from the tournament in Las Vegas. You've kind of saw them consistently improve and tweak different things. They've certainly had a lot of practice time over the course of December, and now they're going to get a chance to kind of showcase the fruits of their labor in conference play.
Yep, and improvement from Milos, his aggression with his shots. The 2 threes he hit were pull-up threes from the top of the key, which is nice because he's being aggressive. His alley-oop pass to Malik in transition, really, that was nice to see. So he's getting more comfortable in his role. Coach Sampson said it as players, and it's one of his many catchphrases, but he said it today, that Javier was a star in his role.
Yeah.
Mercy Miller was a star in his role today. So that's good to see. The guys are getting, and Mercy Miller came in the game with 10 minutes left in the game, which is good. As many minutes as to get him as possible is positive. Good to see his dad in the building. He took pictures with fans. You got celebrities coming to see the Cougars play games now. And so, Master P was taking photos. And so people come to come. If you haven't been to a game, you'll come to, some folks might just come to see Master P, get a glimpse of Master P in the seats. So this ticket is a hot ticket. And this is on a Saturday afternoon, kind of an early start, really. But I think Monday's going to be kind of interesting. 8 o'clock tip off. It's going to be cold.
Yeah,
I'm kind of curious to see how many people are going to will be here for that home game. It's TV, so if it's too cold, some folks might decide to stay home and watch it on ESPN too. Hopefully, it's going to be a sellout and be loud. And with I think it's a 7-1-3 game. It's TCU, a Texas team, Fort Worth. We want to beat all the Texas teams for bragging rights and recruiting and all those things as well. And of course, it's a home game too. Protect home court. Cougars have won 30 in a row at home. And I think they've only lost 6 times inside this building.
Yeah, since they opened it, they actually brought up that stat to BYU head coach, and he found it he found it interesting himself when they brought it up. But yeah, we'll see how Houston looks on their Monday night performance against TCU inside of the Fertitta Center. Really, one of the last things I wanted to touch on. You mentioned Javier Francis, something that Kelvin Sampson has really brought up multiple times over the course of the season early, but that 3-headed monster in the front court in JoJo Tugler, Juwan Roberts, and Javier Francis. And really, I think this wasn't necessarily a lights out performance for Juwan Roberts, but I think he still had a really solid performance. 6.6 rebounds. They didn't really have to do much in terms of how the game ended up playing out, but I think you can make the argument. Obviously, this past game against Oklahoma State is his best game of the season. You kind of make the argument he's probably had his 2 best performances back outings. And then Javier Francis, like you said, we're seeing that trend. And again, something that Kelvin Sampson has mentioned multiple times, that really he'd be hindered by that injury that he suffered right before the season started, where he had to miss 18 days.
Yeah, it's now got to get JoJo back on track.
Yeah. And with him, it's foul trouble.
At one point this season, JoJo was the best big of the 3. The last 2 games, Juan has played well. Today, Javier played well. Now we've got to get all 3 playing well at the same time. Coach Sampson has said similar comments throughout the season so far, but he said it again post-game today. He likes this team. He likes the ceiling for this team, because this team will continue to get better, and we can see the potential there. It's not, we ask after the losses, who is going to be the Cougs, Jamal Shedd, the closer. Coach even said, we don't have Mariano Rivera on this year's team. But based on matchups, you might go to the hot hand or who that opponent has. You might just might be Juwan Roberts for that game winning shot. It might be Manuel Sharp. It might be LJ. Hell, it might be Terrence Arsenault. Who knows? So sometimes we don't have the guy. The versatility is better because the opponent might not. Okay, we don't know who to double team. Who's going to get the ball? We're not sure. So it could be advantageous for the Cougs this season for that. And it's a good win. Margin victory surprised me. I expected it to be closer and more competitive, but I'm not going to get carried away. I don't expect the Cougs to beat all the Big 12 opponents at home by 30. TCU, I think, is going to be more of a grind. But again, clearly, if it's a massive if Houston shoots 40% from 3 on the volume like they did today, they're going to win a lot of games this season. They shot almost 50% from 3 today.
Most definitely. And again, it's a testament to how good of a home court advantage they have inside of the Fertitta Center, because, like you said, this BYU team, we mentioned it right after the Oklahoma State game. They're a good team. They're going to win a lot of games as the season progresses in Big 12 play themselves. And they looked bamboozled in this outing against Houston from the opening tip. So big kudos to everybody that showed out in the home court advantage they've created here inside the Fertitta Center. If you guys have heard music for the past 2 minutes, it's because the women's basketball team is beginning their warm-ups as they're going to play Arizona State at 6 p.m. So, Kris, unless you have any final thoughts, we're pretty much going to do it for today's edition of Let's Rage Coogs. Once again, just to thank everybody, first and foremost, everybody that's taking the time out of their Saturday afternoon to join us, whether you're watching us live or maybe you're checking us out on a different day. Be sure to hit the like button. If you are new to the channel and this is the first time ever encountering Let's Rage Coogs, we do this after each and every single Houston Cougars men's basketball post-game show. So whether you're a BYU fan that kind of just wants to stick and keep track of how Houston does over the course of their conference schedule leading up to the Big 12 tournament, be sure to hit the subscribe button, like, follow. Thank you for every person that's commented. Again, if you're not watching us live, be sure to leave a comment in the comment section, whichever YouTube channel you're listening to, whether it's Houston Round Bar, if you're Potsdam Pajama, if you're watching us on X, big thank you to you guys. If you're listening to audio only, big thank you to you guys as well. Of course, also big thank you to our sponsors, beginning with Steve Saxenian for being a primary sponsor of this edition of Let's Rage Coogs. This is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. And we also like to say thank you to Star Pizza for being a secondary sponsor on today's episode. Like I mentioned, with 3 different locations throughout the Houston area, Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. And visit them online at starpizza.net or on social media, Star Pizza HOU via X or Star Pizza Houston, Texas on Instagram. As put the camera, Jeremy's gonna give a look at that. He gives a thumbs up.
Thumbs up, yeah.
Pizza. So not better endorsement right there from the
Jeremy can eat
Houston
because he just had some fried chicken from Frenchie's, and now he's eating pizza from Star Pizza.
Why you got to put him on blast like that, Chris?
Because Jeremy's my man and known forever, so it's all good.
You know what you just called him? You probably don't know what this means, but I might put up a new term to you, Chris. I'm curious to see if you know what this means. You just called Jeremy Big Back.
What?
Big Back. You just called Jeremy Big Back.
You said that. I didn't say that.
That's what you implied. Do you know what that means? I'm curious.
I do not. I do not know what that means. No.
It's just someone that can really see. I got educated in that.
From your students
3 months ago. Yes, it's something that they bring up a lot.
Because you're getting old, young man. You're getting old.
I guess I am. Sometimes my knees creak and my back hurts, but
you're getting old.
That being said, again, big thank you to each and every single one of you guys. Chris, I'll toss it over to you. Any final thoughts? And obviously, of course, sir, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm gonna promote and be ready after I'm done because we got to do business for ourselves. All right, people. See the merch there? It's the new hoodie, Houston Round Bar View, the new logo there. Buy it, the Houston Round Bar View merch. I'm getting
showed up again.
I'm getting compliments for the hoodie that I'm wearing. It's a zip-up hoodie. I have zip-ups and the regular pullover hoodies as well. Heavier hoodies because it's getting colder for the week here in Houston.
Yeah, that freezing temperatures on Monday.
Yep. But as always, thank you to Saxenian Family. Thank you to Star Pizza. Thank you to Crab Chief Michael Jones. All our comments, questions, our viewers on the platforms, on YouTube and on Twitter, and the people who listen the day after or watch on demand. I think these shows will also be available on Roku via the BS3 network. Just look for Houston Round Bar View on there as well. But if you want to advertise, you want to become another sponsor on Let's Rage Coogs, Andy, get the email address ready. Email Andy. And if you want to sponsor us in our endeavors of getting to the Big 12 tournament so we can do on-site shows from Kansas City, reach out to Andy and work with us, because in this day and era, day and time, you can advertise with us and we can get your product name out there on the reels, on Instagram, the reels, the shorts on YouTube and Twitter and TikTok. It's a lot of different ways for us to reach out. Our audience is growing. I got my colleague, A.D. Moore, will have some big news to announce tomorrow on his show on the AdMax Corner. I already announced some of my big news yesterday. I've already been approved for the Women's Final Four for the Houston Round Bar View. And Houston Round Bar View will be at the Men's Final Four, hopefully covering the Cougs. But if it's not me, someone else will be there representing the Houston Round Bar View in San Antonio, men's side. So both are covered, Men's Final Four, Women's Final Four. If you want to be part of all these events, Paul Slamma Jamma, Let's Rage Coogs, Houston Round Bar View, reach out to us and make this happen. 2025 is here. We got big plans, big ideas. We want to work with you onward and upward. And y'all know it. Since 1994, the Houston Round Ball Review, local name, global perspective. And for our brother Dayon Dunlap, wrap it up. Go Cougs.
Yes, sir. We're gonna end it with something different though. Let's see how this goes. This might be the only time that we ever do it because I'm just not here, but I put a little highlight reel together.